It's December the 14th, 2025, and as you can probably tell from this clip, it's very early in the morning. The sun's just starting to creep up over the horizon. This is Great Bromley, and I'm here for the Santa Special 200km Audax, which is an event I've ridden a couple of times before in the last 11 years. And it feels as though I've ridden it more than that, to be honest. It's one of those ones that kind of sticks in the memory, I suppose, and it becomes a bit of an epic. It's a bit unusual, obviously, because most Audaxes are held during the summer months when there's light, and for this one, there isn't. It's an event that you possibly have to be slightly dedicated to ride, because you have got a plan to be able to ride in multiple conditions, both light conditions and also weather conditions. I've always been lucky, actually, when I've ridden it, and it's always been quite benign, really, the weather. So it's always been well above freezing for me, and it's always been dry. But you obviously always run the risk that it's not going to be. And in any case, the roads are always in a bit of a state. And if you do get milder weather and drier weather, the chances are that you're going to get windier weather. And certainly that's been the case for me. So it was quite breezy on this particular day. We'll talk about that more in a moment. Anyway, at the moment, you can see all the people down there that have come by car, who are busy getting their bikes ready, and in most cases, stacking in that last slice of toast, that extra bowl of porridge, that couple of biscuits, just to make sure that they're going to be able to get the distance, at least to the first control anyway. So the event sets off from the village hall at 8 o'clock, and that's literally just after sunrise. And generally, with a lot of Audaxes, people sort of dribble out from the headquarters. They don't go off in one huge group, and it works quite well that that's the case, because it means you don't get a great blob of riders on the road at the same time. I went with the second group, and it actually split up quite a lot fairly early on. So you'll see from this first clip that very rapidly some people are settling into a fairly steady pace, which is probably pretty sensible, and other people try and push on a bit further. And I've always been one of those who goes to try and push on a little bit faster and goes with the person who's trying to go that bit harder. And it's not always a good idea in a long distance event, because actually just letting your legs settle in is probably quite a good thing. The ride heads up the A138, which is a busy road that I would tend nowadays to avoid. At this point, pre 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, it's actually not too bad at all. And then it arrives in Ipswich, which is where we are in this clip here. So I'm with one other rider, and I believe his name is Paul. And we're wending our way through the town centre, which again is significantly quieter than I'd be used to seeing it. Not that I spend an awful lot of time in Ipswich these days, but it is very, very, very quiet. And so it was actually quite a pleasure riding through it. The only thing that was a little bit unpleasant was the fact that you can probably see the roads look kind of glassy, and there's no ice. There was a very, very, very slight frost overnight, but it was very marginal. Certainly not anything that would have caused ice. But at this time of year, you tend to find that you get a mixture of water and oil on the roads, sometimes salt. The roads have been salted, but I don't think they would have been this night. There was certainly no evidence of salt on the bike afterwards, so I don't think so. But it can be very slippery, that sort of paste that ends up getting left, and motorcyclists will tell you the same thing. Drivers often miss it and then wonder why their car doesn't stop. But it can make life quite unpleasant when you're riding on it. This is now arriving in Woodbridge. We've got the River Deben to our right and the town itself to our left. So it's quite an historic area, really. And again, the world hasn't really woken up at this point, even though it's now getting a little bit later. It's 9:15, but the roads are still pretty quiet. I've seen this much busier than this. One thing with this event, and it used to be a rule generally for Audaxes, is that you have to have mudguards on your bike, and I don't think anybody ignored that this year. Everybody respected it, and it's a thoroughly good thing, because you get covered with mud enough as it is, and if you get somebody without mudguards, then it's just appalling. And you can always guarantee that the roads will be mucky. This is Wickham Market. Wickham Market is the location of the very first control. In Audaxes, you tend to get three types of control. You get information controls, where you have to pick up a clue of some sort. It's usually pretty simple, like how far is it on the sign to the next town or village. Or you can get receipt controls, where you have to stop at anywhere that's convenient, really, buy something and keep the receipt with evidence of the time on it. You'd be amazed how many machines have the wrong time. Or there's ones like this, which are manned controls, and you have a little book and your arrival time gets recorded in it. So in this case it's at an equestrian centre, which is just the other side of Wickham Market, and there's a cafe attached to it, which is very useful. Cafe Camargue, which is a lovely little cafe. I've only ever been to it. This is my third time, and the 3 times have all been for this event. But it is definitely well worth a stop. Not everybody does stop at these places, but I personally think it's A, nice to support them, and B, good to get a few extra carbohydrates in there while you have the chance. Anyway, this is a nice, pleasant little cafe at which to stop, and looking very Christmassy, as you can see. We almost beat the 2 very kind volunteers who are manning the control point to it. They only just got there when we arrived. But it's brilliant that they give their time up. Some people, as I say, had skipped straight past it. They just got their book stamped and gone. So we then got them on the road. We had been right at the front, but we then got people in front of us. It's quite nice because you've then got a bit of a carrot in front, and you can see the tyre tracks on a day like this. You can see the tyre tracks gradually getting bolder, less indistinct as they're closing up behind people. So here we're catching a couple of those riders and going past them, and heading north still towards Halesworth. And in Halesworth itself, which was an information control point, we went past a couple of riders who'd stopped to complete their book. I tend to try and keep it in my mind until I get to the next point where I actually have to stop. But they'd stopped, and we picked Henry, who's on the left here, up at this point. He joined us, which was actually quite handy because at this point the route turns west, as you can see from my little blue line on the map, and it wasn't into a block headwind, but it was a head crosswind from the left. And it would have been quite hard, so it was actually nice to have an extra pair of legs to power us along. It made that stretch much easier and much faster, and we made good progress on this actually, possibly even too much progress. This is arriving in Dis, and one of the other things with Audax is you tend to get a real variety of ways, and as you can see, this doesn't really quite constitute the description of road. It's got lots of leaves, it's got a bit of mud, but no traffic, which was lovely. And then you hit Dis town centre itself, which is very different, as you can see from this. And this is always like this pre-Christmas. In fact, I think it's probably like it all the time, but certainly pre-Christmas is particularly bad. I opted to avoid the cafe this time because I'd already done a cafe stop, and it was only a receipt control here. So I went for the nearby Shell filling station and treated myself to a pack of Shell deli sandwiches, which definitely, or the place itself definitely lacked the ambience compared to a pleasant little cafe, but I did still get the carbohydrates. So then I was off up the road again, and I've got Matt Faulkner in front of me. You can probably just see him disappearing around the corner there, having just done the left turn. Matt hadn't stopped for as long at the first cafe in Wickham Market, and had then stopped for perhaps a bit longer than me on this bit, and we ended up together. And we were sort of close to each other for most of the stretch down as far as Breton, which is sort of halfway to Sudbury or just over. But we were riding sort of 100, 200 metres, sometimes 500 metres apart, which was a bit of an odd way of doing it in a way, but it just sometimes kind of happens that way. But it's quite a slog because, of course, at this point we've now picked up the block headwind, so it's heavy, heavy, heavy going. On top of that, there's a lot of exposed bits, which makes it harder. And you're also actually just gradually grinding upwards. The high point of the route is near Breton, so you are actually climbing slightly. But anyway, when I got to Breton, or just before it, I punctured. And like an idiot, schoolboy error, I changed the tube and didn't get the right flint out. I got 2 flints out, but not the actual culprit, and I ended up with a duplicate hole in my replacement tube. Had to stop again at Acton, which is where that shot was taken of the bike. I didn't bother to video the first bit, but anyway, I didn't see Matt again. Matt had disappeared off literally into the sunset, and that was him gone for the day. But it's a control here. It's again a receipt control, so you can stop where you want, but the recommended one is the garage. It's on the route, doesn't involve any sort of deviation, so I've always stopped here, and nice to support them a little bit anyway. And I bought myself a very, very chunky flapjack. You wouldn't want to be eating too many of those if you weren't doing anything active, I can tell you, because I think it was about 500 calories. And I needed it at that point because by this stage my legs were really starting to go. I don't very often blow nowadays, but having had that hard start, I actually was starting to feel it a bit here. And so anyway, leaving Sudbury, those calories had found their mark, and I was already starting to feel quite a bit better. And on top of that, you pick up a lovely tailwind, assuming it's been a headwind on that previous stretch, and it's such a relief after that long slog down from Dis. And these are roads that I know very well, because these are my local training roads. So it was lovely to be on them. It was lovely to enjoy the last bit of the evening sunshine on this stretch. And I do feel as though I'm almost home at this point. Just tempting to pack though when you get to this sort of stage. This is Monks Ely, and this is the last control. It's an information control. It's a question of spotting a word on a sign. There were actually 3 signs, and I know I wasn't alone in picking the wrong sign, so I got the wrong word. I actually had a second guess for one of the other signs, and that was also wrong. It was the 3rd sign, but I had noticed that one too, so I had to negotiate that one with Andy Terry, the fantastic organiser of this event. And like most Audax organisers, he's pretty lenient and lets you change your answer. So anyway, at this point, I'm on my local training route that we use during the summer for this whole stretch, and so this is a bit that I know really, really well. There's normally a fish and chip van parked along here on a Tuesday evening, and I could possibly have done with that. Normally you don't want it on your training ride, but on this occasion, possibly fish and chips might have gone down quite well actually. But anyway, I'm struggling at a considerably lower speed, 10 kilometres an hour slower I suppose than we'd normally come through here at on the training ride, so it was hard going. But I have still got the daylight, just. But this is now leaving Monks Ely and on the top section of road heading towards Seymour with Hadley in front, and as you can see from that light slanting in from the right and the fact that the very low verge is actually casting quite a substantial shadow, that sun is now very, very, very low on the horizon indeed, and I'm very conscious that with 30 kilometres left to go, I'm going to be spending quite a bit of the ride that's left in darkness. So I'm just making the most of it while I can. This is Hadley, not much further up the road. Starting to quieten down a bit by this point, still a few cars around, but everything's now settling down for the end of the weekend really. Apart from the potholes, they're pretty active. Hadley's again one of those lovely little Suffolk towns. That whole last stretch is very classic Suffolk. It's not the sort of the Lavenham pretty stuff, but it's a beautiful area, and an area that I've known for my whole life, so I'm very comfortable around this part of the world. And then this is leaving Hadley, going up through Lyon past the Marquis pub. Known it for years, gone past it for years on training rides. Used to be a brilliant hill climb off to the right here at a village called Haugen. Happily, the organiser didn't take us up that. But as you can see, the light's going, and I'm just starting to enjoy the Christmas lights on the pub at this stage. And they actually do help quite a lot. As you're getting towards the closing stages of a ride like this, morale is quite important. And of course, with the light failing, it's quite easy for your morale to start to go. So it is actually very nice on this event to have these Christmas lights to look forward to on those last few kilometres. It just helps to sort of keep you going, and I did need that. Odd mystery at this stage. I'm sure that I had a rider right behind me. I could hear somebody behind me, I could see his light right behind me, and then he disappeared. And I obviously assumed it was somebody in the event, but nobody arrived back at the headquarters. So whether it was someone else, I don't know. But if you can answer that mystery, please let me know. This is back at the headquarters where Andy and his team have just laid on the most fabulous refreshments, which were just so appreciated. I had a brilliant baked potato at this point. They've got soup going, they've got mince pies going, they've got biscuits going, they've got the lot. So it was pretty amazing. And it just left for me to clean my bike, really. I hope that's inspired you to give an Audax a go, and I hope maybe even this Audax, which is a brilliant, brilliant event, and I can thoroughly recommend it.